All right, President Trump not mincing words with Ukrainian President Zelensky as the U.S. tries leading negotiations with Russia to end the war.
The only thing he was really good at was playing.
All right, President Trump not mincing words with Ukrainian President Zelensky. All right, President Trump not mincing words with Ukrainian President Zelensky as the U.S. tries leading negotiations with Russia to end the war.
The only thing he was really good at was playing Joe Biden like a fiddle. He played him like a fiddle. That's an expression we use. A dictator without elections. Zelensky better move fast or he's not going to have a country left. Got to move fast because that war is going in the wrong direction. In the meantime, we're successfully negotiating an end to the war with Russia.
So President Zelensky firing back, calling Trump's comments Russian disinformation, prompting Vice President Vance to respond. The idea that Zelensky is going to change the president's mind by bad-mouthing him in public media, everyone who knows the president will tell you that is an atrocious way to deal with this administration. Here to react, Trump National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. Michael, fresh off your peace mission with Russia over in Riyadh, want to get to that in a moment. But your sense of the fractured relationships now between President Zelensky and President Trump?
Well, Brian, there's obviously a lot of frustration here. Vice President Vance was very frustrated leaving the Munich Security Conference. Our Secretary of Treasury, who traveled all the way to Kyiv, is also frustrated, all on top of the president, obviously, who makes his frustration well known. And that's because we presented the Ukrainians really an incredible and historic opportunity to have the United States of America co-invest with Ukraine, invest in its economy, invest in its natural resources, and really become a partner in Ukraine's future in a way that's sustainable, but also would be, I think, the best security guarantee they could ever hope for, much more than another pallet of ammunition. And so to have the United States co-invested to grow their pie, to allow their economy to flourish over time, and, oh, by the way, to have the American taxpayer recoup the hundreds of billions of dollars, as the Europeans do, all makes sense. Why we're getting this pushback and certainly this kind of, as the vice president said, bad-mouthing in the press for all the administration has done in his first term as well, and all the United States has done for Ukraine is just, it's unacceptable. They need to tone it down and take a hard look and sign that deal.
So do you believe that this is reconcilable? Do you believe that this is two people just getting mad at each other, or do you think these are two countries going different ways?
Oh, I think so. The president also said how much he loves the Ukrainian people. And again, he was the first to arm them back in his first term. We've done a lot for the security of Ukraine. And to say that we're going to change the nature of our aid going forward is, I don't think, should offend anyone. Look, the president is ready to drive this war to an end. He has made that clear over and over again. And just a week ago, Brian, he had both President Putin on the phone and Zelensky on the phone, literally within minutes of each other. And both were saying, only you, President Trump, can lead this war to a conclusion when no one else has been able to. And in fact, the last administration didn't even really try. So now President Trump is doing what he should as a leader and pushing hard diplomacy with strength and leadership. And, you know, no one should be surprised about that.
Right. In terms of President Zelensky, his approval rating's around 54%, and he can't really have elections while he's at war. That's in their constitution. And it seems as though they both sides understood that until yesterday. What do you see your role going forward as early as today? Maybe to get the two on the phone?
Well, look, this notion that the Ukrainians haven't been consulted, I have to push back on that, Brian. I've been talking to his national security advisor, Zelensky's national security advisor, on a regular basis. We just mentioned the meetings both Secretary of State and Vice President Vance have had with him. Special Envoy Keith Kellogg is out there literally right now. So we have had plenty of engagement and dialogue in order to drive this deal home, this economic partnership, and move forward towards peace. And also for our European friends, look, we have President Macron of France coming next week. We have Prime Minister Starmer of the United Kingdom coming next week. I spoke with all of their national security advisors, including Germany's, yesterday. So we are consulting our allies. We're consulting the Ukrainians. There's a term for this in diplomacy. It's called shuttle diplomacy, because bringing everybody to the table at once just hasn't worked in the past. So we've engaged one side, we've engaged the other side, and then we're going to have a process moving forward under President Trump's direction and leadership.
And as you know, a lot of Democrats kind of hit the roof with all this back and forth. Listen.
It has been remarkable to watch Donald Trump line up with Putin so directly that it's almost as if Putin writes his talking points.
This feels like one of the biggest kind of American surrender since Vietnam.
The mental gymnastics that you see Republicans undertaking to somehow justify the unjustifiable.
Republicans, at this point, have power to change what Trump is doing if they can find their spines. And it may be the whole country's job to help them find it.
And your retort to that?
You know, I guess all of those Democrats were perfectly fine with seeing hundreds of thousands of people literally on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in a meat grinder of a war that has turned into an endless war under Joe Biden, who could not define success and basically said, as long as it takes, as much as it takes, no matter how many people die, no matter how much death and destruction, because I haven't heard any one of them actually present a plan to bring this war to an end. President Trump has done that, and we're going to execute it.
Right. To me, this reminds me of Lion Ted and De Sanctimonious. When the president locks horns and gets angry, that's what he does. But he also could put his hand out and say, let's move forward. That's where this reminds me of.
And, Brian, and the same ones that are screaming for peace and are screaming for a ceasefire over in Gaza, I guess are screaming for endless war in Europe. It's nonsensical. This is a common sense plan. They may not like it, but we're going to drive it forward, and everybody will stop squawking when the fighting ends.
When the Russians say we met with we met with you and Marco Rubio, and we got the sense that the U.S. is with us, are they wrong?
Well, I think our interests are aligned in stopping the war. They have different reasons, of course, in the Ukrainians. There's still all kinds of disagreement that we need to pull both sides together. But, Brian, that was a historic first step, and it started with that historic phone call that President Trump had with Putin and the confidence-building measure that we had with the release of Mark Fogel. Remember, that was just a week ago, Brian. I don't think time is on anyone's side, and we're going to move forward full speed ahead to drive this war to an end. And then we can talk about broader geostrategic relationships. And that's the conversation we had with the Russians, but it's a first of many to come.
Would it be great if the Russians handed back the 20,000 children they stole from the Ukrainian families, renamed them and handed them out to Russians? Would they ever agree to give the children back?
You know, we talked about what we're going to have to do in territory, what we're going to have to do in security guarantees, what we're going to have to do kind of in the future broader security arrangement, the future of our relationship, and those kinds of exchanges, prisoner exchanges, children, what's happened in some of these areas. It's been a devastating war. All of that, should be resolved, and we are trying to resolve. But for everyone to just throw their hands up and say, well, we don't like what they're doing, but we don't have a plan either, is just unacceptable. But shouldn't surprise anybody in Washington, D.C.
And we agree. I think everyone now agrees. The war has got to come to an end, and President Trump is in the perfect place to do it. Hopefully these former friends will be future friends again, Zelensky and Trump, of course. Michael Waltz, great job. Thanks so much for getting up with us this morning.